We'll start right where we left off with the technology in this room gradually degrading. Pretty soon, I'll be pedaling the PowerPoint thing, in order to give power. Or maybe I'll get to use the chalkboard like all the other teachers. Okay, so welcome back from spring break. It's great to see you all back. You're booing me. I'm sorry that I'm not spring break. Yeah, welcome back. As noted in the syllabus, you're expected to return both physically and mentally from spring break, and I can see from the hungry looks on your faces that you've done exactly that. You've come back and you're ready to learn, you're ready for knowledge, you want to be educated, you're passionate about social psychology, and that's something I admire about every one of you. So I'm impressed. I'm glad to see these looks on your faces. Every one of you is looking at me right now with this sullen look that this is not how you actually feel inside, but I know you better, and I know you feel passion. We're going to get going, and we're going to channel that. I, too, am passionate about the rest of the semester. I think a lot of the best stuff, my favorite stuff to teach in this class starts in this kind of last third of the class, so this is going to be a good part of the class. Where we left off, we were sort of in the middle of a social psychological journey, an odyssey, if you will. And where we had started with some classical psychological social psychology in the first third of the class. Some classic stuff that people think of when they think of social psychology: conformity, cognitive biases, cognitive dissonance, balance theory, some great work. And we went from there, from that relatively individual level stuff, a lot of it older research, to more sociological stuff, more social psychological research about social interaction, groups, how people interact with groups, and so on. And so that's where we are now, and we're sort of finishing up that third of the class, the second third of the class. And then in the third third of the class, which will start next Thursday, we're going to come back down in levels of analysis. We're going to leave groups not behind, but we're going to focus more on the individual again. And we're going to try and confront some kind of fundamental questions about the human condition, like what does it take to be happy? What does it take to maintain good relationships? And these sorts of questions. How can you find a good life? How can you find satisfaction in everyday life? Social psychology is very much the science of everyday life. A lot of areas profess to study this in the social sciences. I think that social psychology is the place to go for the greatest observations about everyday life, the determinants of human behavior, human attitudes, perception, and so in a lot of ways I think this is the work that is most applicable to everyday life. So right now what we're doing is we're finishing this middle third where the research that we're talking about and the theories we're talking about are as social as it's going to get throughout this class. And indeed we've gotten pretty high in levels of analysis. It's gotten pretty social. So when we left for spring break, we talked about different levels of identity. We talked about personal identities, which we don't cover in the class. Then we talked about role identities. We talked about the Zimbardo prison experiment. We talked about the work of Irving Goffman. And we went up in levels of analysis from that even. So social identity theory and intergroup conflict. And you watched The Grand Illusion. And got some greater understanding on the dynamics of groups that are brought together. The Robbers Cave experiment. And so now you have some sense of individuals in relationship to their groups. I mean, not you didn't before, but hopefully some greater sense. Then right before break, in an extremely well-attended lecture that all of you were here for, we talked about culture. Culture is a big concept. It's a big group concept. We think of whole nations or even continents as having cultures. And we talked about one of the fundamental areas of research on culture in social psychology, the Southern culture of honor. And the Southern culture of honor lecture, I'll recap it briefly, was oriented toward the solution to a problem. And that problem was, why is it, problem isn't a research problem, not necessarily a social problem, though most would probably argue it is a social problem. And that problem was, why is it the case that Southern white males are more violent than Northern white males, and at such high rates? And it's a big difference that we find in systematic research on this subject. And the Southern culture of honor, as a theory, located one factor as the answer to this question, and that factor is cultures of honor. That there's a culture of honor in the South, which says that when your honor is threatened or challenged, or the honor of your family, or people you care about, that you're supposed to defend your honor with violence if necessary. And that they did a series of studies showing that in the South, or Southern men, when challenged, are more likely to fly off the handle, get very angry, get very violent, more so than Northern white males. And we also found that Southern white males are also higher in politeness, but that those politeness norms in the South may actually strangely contribute in a counterintuitive way, an ironic way, to these high rates of violence. And so that's the lecture that I left you with two Thursdays ago. And since then, if you're anything like me, I spent 8 of 11 days sitting on the couch eating a 7-layer dip. I went through several 7-layer dips, and each more satisfying than the last. And I recharged my jets. I had many beers. I watched many college basketball games. But at this point, I got a question: is that life fulfilling? Can you just eat 7-layer dip for the rest of your life? I'm not sure. I think Seth Rogen's doing a film on that right now. But so I tried that, and I came away with a greater appreciation for what we're doing here, and so I'm excited to get back started on the next topic, which has nothing to do with guacamole or any of that. Okay. Oh, one organizational thing before we start today's lecture. The exam is next Tuesday for the second third of the class. So on Thursday, we're going to do a review for that. We're going to review all the material that will be on the second exam, and then I'll probably have a review sheet up by late Wednesday night, if not earlier. So any questions about that coming exam? Okay. It should be a lot like the first one. Yes, ma'am. Am I going to hand out yes, I will bring paper copies of the review sheet to class on Thursday, so you can print it or not print it, either way. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, great. And then also after class today, we'll be handing back any copies of exams you can pick up outside of out front of Valley here. Okay, so as I said, we're in the middle third, or the end of the middle third of the class, and in this part, we've been talking a lot about sociological concepts and ideas and theories. And specifically today, I want to talk about research on status, or theory and research on status. And status is a central sociological concept that's earned a great deal less attention in psychology, though more recently psychologists have made some very nice contributions to this area, including our own Dr. Kellner and Cameron Anderson on this campus. So status is a fundamental area that sociologists are interested in, partly because it goes back to Max Weber. Max Weber was this early sociologist, maybe the first sociologist in some ways. Well, I guess Auguste Comte was probably the first sociologist, but he's kind of the first person that contributes a great deal of information to cutting-edge contemporary sociology. And he was one of the first people to say the fundamental dimensions of stratification and inequality in everyday life and also in greater societies are, do you know what they are? Class, status, and power. Exactly. Very good. And so today we focus on status, and we'll be very much following the Weberian tradition, following his conception of status. Though we'll be focused, because we're social psychologists, at a somewhat lower level of analysis. Okay. So what is status? Well, as I said, the definition of what status is, I want to point out that groups tend to divide into relative hierarchies based on status. And this is an observation that was made it's been made several times in human history, I'm sure, but it was made in the early 1950s by Robert Bales, a professor at Harvard, who you might remember was the main person responsible for denying Stanley Milgram tenure at Harvard. So they didn't get along very well. And this is an observation that was made based on research on small groups. They would observe these small groups in artificial laboratory settings and just watch what they did. And what they found was that spontaneously, even groups of total strangers, when thrown together into a room and asked to interact and directed in their interaction, can you all please be quiet there? Thank you. And being directed in their interaction towards some task, they would very quickly form hierarchies of status and influence. This would happen spontaneously. And it's just a fundamental tendency of human nature to divide into status hierarchies, relative hierarchies. So, what's the definition of status for the purpose of this class? Status is an individual's relative standing in a group's hierarchy based on prestige, honor, and respect. You know the first rule of definitions is don't use the term in the definition, and so we've craftily gotten around that by using these synonyms: prestige, honor, and respect. I could have just said status equals prestige, honor, and respect, but I decided to throw in an individual's relative standing in a group hierarchy to kind of clarify some of the dynamics of status. This is my definition. If you're frustrated with this, you should blame Morris E. Zeldich Jr. I know. Actually, his nickname is Buzz, partly because that's, I don't know, anyway, we'll get back to Morris E. Zeldich Jr. soon. Okay, so your position in a status hierarchy reflects essentially how good people think you are. You know, not good in the moral sense, but good in terms of your value. Remember back to the Grand Illusion film that we watched, the lecture that accompanied it, we were talking about how people in feudal times were born into positions of nobility or honor, and those were status positions. And people thought that the nobles were better by birth, that upon being born, they were better people. And likewise, status, though it's not determined by birth in our society anymore, I mean, maybe a little bit, race, gender, and so on, but it's largely not based on inherent innate characteristics. Instead, it's mostly achieved now, or believed to be achieved, based on fair or unfair criteria, but it still reflects this idea of how good people think you are, how honorable are you, how much do people respect you. Okay. Now, these hierarchies, these status hierarchies in groups, these relative hierarchies, are the product of all status-relevant information that's available in some group setting. So when we go into a group setting, what we do is we obtain all the information that's relevant that differentiates people with respect to status. And in a second, we'll talk about what kinds of information that is. What kind of information is considered status relevant in this culture, at least. And in these groups, we take that information, we kind of look around, size up the room, size up the group, maybe you're not in a room, whatever, size up the group, and say, where do we stand on these various criteria? Where do we stand in terms of their relative wealth, their gender, and so on? And we combine this information and create a sort of mental hierarchy of who's best and who isn't. So status characteristics are characteristics of individuals that are status relevant. So when I talk about status relevant information, or on the ensuing slides here, when I talk about bases of status stratification, what I'm talking about are status characteristics, characteristics of an individual that are considered status relevant. And information about these characteristics is combined to create a general sense of each person's position in the group's status hierarchy. Okay. So what are these bases of status differentiation? You probably have some idea already of criteria that separates people along status lines in our culture, but let's be explicit about it. What are some of these status characteristics? Well, they include, first, bases of discrimination in a larger society. These will be some familiar criteria to you. So race, gender, sexual orientation, wealth, power, attractiveness. For all of these concepts, for all of these dimensions, people who are higher on them, and every one of you knows what I mean by higher on. Everybody already says, oh, I know for race you mean white, at least in this culture. I know for gender you mean male. I know for sexual orientation you mean straight, and so on. For the more valued side of that characteristic, people are more respected, and people lower on those criteria tend to be discriminated against in society. And so these are among the bases of status discrimination in groups, or status differentiation in groups. When we go and size up everybody's standing in the group on this relative hierarchy, among the things we first attend to are their race, gender, and so on. But also, status hierarchies aren't only made up of these characteristics, these bases of discrimination. They're also made up of more merit-based factors that more directly reflect perceived levels of competence, or maybe your moral fiber or virtue, if you will. And these include education. So people with more education are more respected. That's why we're all here, presumably. Specific skills, intelligence, generosity or honesty. Again, these kind of bases of moral fiber or integrity. We respect people more who are more generous or who are more honest. So again, when we're sizing up the groups we're in and putting together a mental relative hierarchy in our heads, we're taking into account all this information. We say, well, Joe is a white male, but he's also very honest. He's low in education. He has these skills. He doesn't have these skills. He's a moderately smart guy. Jane is a black woman. She's extremely well educated. She's very smart, and she's generous, and she's incredibly dishonest, which I don't know. And you put this together in a mental hierarchy, and you sort of combine all these things, and that's how you assess where people stand with respect to status. What's an example of a fair criteria? These are intended to be, I mean, you don't want to say, it's hard to say what's fair. Certain people would say, from certain cultural backgrounds, or certain attitudes would say gender. That's a fair criteria of status differentiation, because men are inherently better than women, or women are inherently better than men. I'm here saying that's a basis of discrimination. Most of us would agree is not a fair basis of status differentiation. These are something more merit-based, more having to do with characteristics of your personality that are generally thought to be positively valued, or behaviors you enacted that are generally thought to be positively valued. Less categories you fit in that have generalizations attached to them that don't really have much to do with merit. So that would be these kind of bases of discrimination, and these are more what I'm calling more merit-based bases of status differentiation. So how generous you are, how intelligent you're perceived to be, and so on. But some people could say, generosity is for suckers. I don't respect people who are more generous. I respect people who are more selfish, or something. Or somebody else might say, education, they got those hoity-toity people in Berkeley getting their bachelor's degrees. I don't respect these people, and so on. So in this way, and again, I should step carefully saying fair and unfair, but in this way, broadly speaking, we can say the status hierarchies are based on both fair and unfair criteria. And indeed, status hierarchies also, not only do they reflect characteristics that we would all probably agree are merit-based, but then also ones that we would all agree are bases of discrimination, but then in turn, they have good and bad effects as well. So we often think, as sociologists, of status hierarchies as all bad. They're just bases of discrimination. They just lead to some people being left out and some people being treated badly, and other people being treated better for no good reason. But there's a whole other perspective on status hierarchies that says that's not the case. So yes, it is the case that status hierarchies lead to patterns of discrimination, and we would generally think of these as bad. But status hierarchies also streamline interaction and can help coordinate group action. So let's say, for example, that we have a work group, and it is the case that Jane is way more skilled at the task we're working on, and then there's 4 guys in the group who lack those skills. And it's widely known that Jane is by far the most skilled person in the room. What we would hope would happen is that people would defer to Jane's greater expertise on this task. And indeed, if that happens, perhaps as a result of status processes directing people to respect and defer to higher status people, then the group is going to be more productive. If they don't pay attention to Jane and instead ignore her contributions or treat them as equal to everybody else's, then what you'll find is that the group will do worse. It'll be less productive, less efficient, and so on. So in some ways, status hierarchies can be very useful for sort of coordinating and streamlining group action by saying, okay, we'll pay most attention to the highest status people who have the best inputs on this task and so on, and we'll defer to them, and then people lower status will be quiet. Now, obviously, whether or not status is having good or bad effects, whether it's leading to unwarranted discrimination, or whether it's leading to greater group productivity, streamlined interaction, and group coordination, will have a lot to do with whether that status hierarchy is based on the more merit-based or the more discriminatory bases of status. So, for example, if we have a group hierarchy that's really, where people are mostly differentiated based on their skills, education, intelligence, generosity, and so on, then we're probably going to be like, oh, the status hierarchy rocks. It helps us work well as a group, and any discrimination that these do is justified because generous, intelligent people, deserve to be respected. But if our status hierarchy is based mostly on bases of discrimination, like race, gender, sexual orientation, wealth, class background, and so on, then we'll say, then it's probably not going to help the group do any better because these are bases of status differentiation that don't have much to do with real competence, and it's not going to help coordinate group action in a productive way, but it will lead to discrimination. So status hierarchies are in this way complicated. Just write that under as a question. Okay, so what does status do? higher state of standing leads to greater respect from others, almost by definition, right? I put respect in the definition of status, and then I said status caused respect. Should be very suspicious of that. It leads to greater influence. People who are higher status in groups tend to have more influence over other people, more influence over the outcomes of group decision making. If I'm in a room with someone who I really, really respect, who's a lot higher status than me, I'll probably defer to them, and likewise, they will not be influenced by me because relative to them, I'm very low status. Also, higher status people are given more opportunities to speak. Have you ever had this experience where you're in a group, you think you know the right answer, but you happen to be low status for reasons you probably don't buy into? These people rarely do when they're low status. Well, no, that's not silly. But anyway, imagine one of those situations where you don't buy the bases for why you're low status. Nobody's listening to you. Nobody's giving you any opportunities to speak, but you think you know the right answer. We've all been there. Also, higher status standing tends to lead to one's ideas, contributions to group efforts, thoughts that people express, as it tends to lead them to be more positively evaluated. So even if we were to somehow experimentally control for how smart your contributions in a group interaction are, if you're high status, people will be like, that's some smart stuff. That is really well done, well done. You always seem to get it right. But if you're low status, people will be like, well, I don't think you really thought about all sides of the issue, and so on. Even if you said the exact same thing in these two settings, if your status level is different, your contribution or what you said will often be differently evaluated. And again, we should all be able to think of circumstances like that, where we're in a position where there's some boss or something like that everybody respects, and they say something that's just inane, that's just idiotic, and you're like, wow, that's just really dumb. And then you find maybe even yourself saying, yeah, that's okay, that's great, we'll come back to that, that's really kind of okay. When you should be saying, that doesn't make any sense at all. But if they were low status, you might challenge them. And indeed, really high status people, they don't seem to have an aura where you can't really criticize them for concerns about retribution from others and anteceding like your own position in the group is legitimate. Okay, other stuff that higher status leads to, higher perceived competence. This is about the same thing. When people are higher status, we tend to assume they're more competent. Traditionally, throughout American history, whites and males have been thought of as more competent, even when there was no reason to assume that. Higher perceived honesty and integrity. This is very interesting. They have lots of research showing that higher status people will get sentenced to fewer years because they're, when they go up for sentencing, if they've been found guilty, partly because they're assumed to be more honest, have greater integrity. They found, by the way, that attractive people will get sentenced to fewer years in prison for the exact same crime, same details of the crime, and they think this is because attractiveness leads to status, leads to presumptions of honesty and integrity. And indeed, this is one thing that is the case. More attractive people are more honest and have greater integrity. Just checking. Every once in a while you gotta check. So higher status people tend to get better pay in labor markets. They tend to be assigned greater pay. And then they also, and this is kind of frustrating, should you not be super high status in general, they tend to be held to more lenient standards of evaluation. So high status people, it's hard for them to lose their status because when they do things, people say, oh, that's pretty good, and they hold them to a lower standard of evaluation. Whereas if you're low status and you're trying to improve your standing in some group, you're held to a very tough standard, and your contributions are evaluated more critically. And you can think back now to this example I was talking about, where you imagine you're in some group setting and the highest status person says something dumb. What happens? Are they held to the toughest standard that anybody's argument would be held to? Are they called inane as their argument? Ridiculed? No, not a high status person. Very rarely. If they're the low status person, then maybe that would happen. Okay. So, having talked about some of these things that status is based on, some of these bases of discrimination is based on, as well as more merit-based criteria of status standing in groups, and then also having talked about some of the things that status causes, let's talk about some of the principles or processes of status. How does status work? And this is something that social psychologists are very interested in. And they don't think quite as much about the first two things we talked about. They think more about these processes by which status works. This is what really gets social psychologists excited. So first, status hierarchies are relative. Now, what does that mean? People are always saying this in social psychology, and a lot of people don't appreciate how profound this observation about status hierarchies is. Well, the idea here is that you're ranked relative to others around you in your group. So, your status standing is contingent on characteristics of yourself, maybe your education, your race, your gender, maybe your honesty, generosity, and so on, but it's also contingent on the people around you. So there is a group setting where you could be easily the highest status person in the group, right? There's definitely a group setting like that. In fact, you may have been in that group setting today. You might be in that group setting in this room, I don't know. And there's also a group setting where you be the lowest status person in the group. And indeed, you're probably often in groups like that. Think about those of you who have children and also have parents. Think about when you go to your parents' house and your child's in with you. Then you are a child, right? And you're the lowest status person in the house or in the home. But then you go back home to your kids, and then also you're the highest status person. You're a very different person, right? In terms of how you're treated, the way you enact yourself in these different settings. From a certain perspective, you're the same person, but from a social psychological perspective, you're a very different person. You've been high status, you've been low status. Think about your progress throughout the course of a day. You sit in this room and you're lower status, and then you leave, maybe talking to the person next to you, you're equal status probably. Then you go into some room, maybe you lead some student group, you're highest status. Then you go to another room, with another group that maybe you live with, and you're equal status. Or maybe you then go to some other student organization where you're new at, and you're the lowest status person. And you maybe epiphenomenally in your head experience all these settings and experience yourself in all these settings as the same person. And certainly in a certain sense you are the same person. But in a very social sense, you're a very, very different person. And you occupy very different roles and status positions across these groups. And this is one of the great observations that status research has given us, is the relative nature of status hierarchies. I have a friend, my friend Bob, I was talking to him one time, my friend Bob was this good friend of mine from college. I should clarify at the beginning of this that in high school and college, I was someone that none of you would hang out with. Like none of you would have been dead with me. And I was talking with Bob about how not popular we were in high school. And I was like, but I did very well with the dorks, though. I was good with the dorks. And my friend Bob got all excited. He's like, oh, I was the king of the dorks, And I was like, I bet you were, Bob, I bet you were. And Bob was the king of the dorks. And you know as soon as you met him, I love Bob, he's a beautiful guy. So, have you ever seen the movie Freaks and Geeks? We would fit right in there with the geeks, maybe the freaks as well. But anyway, if you've ever seen that, we were the guys from the AV club, debate club, academic teams, and math club, math leads, all of that. Love that stuff. Loved it. And perhaps because in those settings we could actually find respect. And that's the point, though. We would walk from those rooms, into other rooms, and we would, in our respect would plunge, plunge. And so Bob, in one room, could be king of the dorks, and in another room, could be very looked down upon, and a social outcast, a pariah, really a pariah. Yeah.